control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I am your host, Brent Thomas. Hope you guys are doing great out there. Thank you all for being here with me and spending your Friday evening right here in the portal. That to me is amazing. Special thanks, as always, to the Freaky Friday crew for setting the stage for us. I really appreciate it. And this is always an amazing journey. So thanks for being here. And just so you know, throughout the course of our show, the phone lines are open. If you have something that you'd like to discuss paranormally, you're welcome to call in. The call-in number is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. So if you want to call in and be a part of the discussion tonight, you're sure welcome to. I'd love to hear from you guys. It's always a lot of fun to hear what you guys have experienced and been through. I know it's one of my favorite parts anyway. So hello to everybody in the TFR live chat. I see you guys there. And hello to all of you guys in the YouTube chat. And hope you guys are ready for a great weekend. And I hope at least part of it is staying tuned to every episode of the Paranormal Portal. That's my favorite part, but I might be a little biased. But tonight we're going to have a discussion about the many faces of Bigfoot. And basically, it's not so much that we're going to talk about the fact that they have different looks and different types and all of that. But it's just there's many different experiences people have, and we're going to talk about several experiences throughout the course of our night tonight. And there's everything people experience, from these benign, just incidental experiences to these incredibly terrifying, horrifying experiences where people think they're going to die, to almost cute and cuddly looking experiences. Those are hard to come by. They do come up every once in a great while, but they're very rare. And maybe it's just because people are, don't come forward and discuss them a whole lot, but just the idea that there's this being is incredibly prolific across the entire globe. There isn't too many locations on the planet that don't have them. I don't believe Antarctica has them. But Antarctica doesn't really have much of anything, so I don't imagine they could probably make a living there. Maybe I guess anything's possible. It's kind of hard to figure out at what point did they spread across the globe. Was it when it was all one supercontinent, and then later broke up into eventually to become the face of the world that we know today? Or did they cross the Bering Land Bridge and all over the place from what is believed to be an Asiatic origin? I don't know, and nobody can know, because quite frankly, there's no understanding of when these things came into the picture. Where did they come from? What are they? And where did they originate from, as far as which branch of what family? And I don't know. There's so many questions, and there's a lot of speculation out there. But one thing is for sure is that this isn't, if it was just a legend, it would, it would have long since fizzled. If it was just folklore, it would have long since went the way of, a million other stories that kind of come and they go. Those kind of things, they flash in our collective consciousness, and then they're just kind of forgotten. But the persistence of this experience, this phenomena, by people across the globe from all walks of life, and continued encounters that people have to these days, to this day. In fact, you can find brand new reports all the time on sites like the BFRO and stuff that people are still experiencing things. You can listen to Sasquatch Chronicles and catch a whole new batch of people. And a lot of those stories are pretty recent. They're not just ancient history, like, hey, my grandpa said he saw blah. People are experiencing it all the time still. There is a mountain of track evidence. There is hair samples. There have been genetic studies. There's such a mountain of evidence in regards to this phenomena that I guess it still really boggles my mind that more mainstream scientists haven't embraced it and started looking into the phenomena, or researchers other than, it's the kind of, maybe that's good and bad though, right? Because once it becomes the domain of established science, then it is no longer the domain of all of us, like armchair researchers. Even if you're researching at home, you can still research this topic. You can still find a way to contribute to the community as a whole. But the neat thing is that it's really become a phenomena of its own, just in far as the enthusiastic pursuit that has been embraced by millions. I think there's got to be millions of people worldwide that are looking into this and trying to continue that body of knowledge. And I think that that's cool. So when mainstream science steps in, what are we left with? Well, then it becomes the domain of the universities and the laboratories and the special interests and contract groups and who knows what else. It probably becomes military at that time if it's not already. And believe me, this isn't going to be a discussion about do they know or don't they know. I think it's pretty universally believed that they do know, but perhaps they don't want to validate it on an official level because it may have ramifications into many other secret programs. And I don't pretend to know anything about that, really. I just hear little scuttlebutts here and there. And quite honestly, with the body of reports that are out there, with the people coming forward and people having had experiences not only with the beings, but with these other people that seem to be almost a Bigfoot version of the Men in Black. And if you're not really sure what I'm talking about, you have to check out Sasquatch Chronicles. And I don't remember which episode it is, but it's the one where the lady from England is up on the ridge in California with her camera, and she drops part of her camera, and then the big male comes running out of the ocean and runs up the hill, and the big female comes with and kind of sounds like talks him out of like smushing her. But he just roars, and the next thing she knows, she's woken up laying next to her car. And so I think, just by the narrative there, what seems to me is that she was stunned into unconsciousness by some means, whether it's some kind of audible. I'm still connected. If you guys on TFR can hear me, let me know. Looks like I'm still connected. Connected to the phone lines. You guys on YouTube still hearing me? Let me know, please. Can you hear me? Yes, Lawrence says they can hear me. Good. On TFR. Thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate that. I hope you're answering me. And, did I fade out on YouTube? Okay. Well, that's interesting. Sorry, guys. I don't know. Just some flaky stuff going on here. But my point is that there does seem to be like a Men in Black kind of thing that comes up every once in a while. And I find that incredibly interesting. And the tail end of that report is basically they tried to convince her that she saw a bear. And she's adamant that that's not what they saw. And I wish I knew the episode number. It was one that Wes and I covered when he was on the Paranormal Portal with me, and we did a podcast together. And it was a clip he played on there, and it was just so powerful. You can hear it in her voice. This person really had an incredibly profound experience. Oh, okay, I buffered. Oh, all right, thanks, Justin. I appreciate that. I don't know what the hell's going on. Looks like, let me look at this. I got green lights everywhere. So as far as I know, my connection is fine, but I guess for a second there it wasn't. I do apologize for that. There's some things that I can be responsible for, but one of them that I can't help is the internet connection. So I hope we just stay connected. There's only so much I can control. So the many faces of Bigfoot is talking about the many kind of experiences that people have. And, wherever you're at with the phenomena, I think that if you're listening to the show, you're probably pretty much in the I believe Bigfoot is real camp. I do personally. I had an encounter when I was 14 with what I believe to be. Okay, I'm good to go, bro. No lag here. Good. Thank you, AJ. I appreciate that. And thank you to all of you guys. I don't know. That's the hard part about doing a show like this, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we're not a big production. We are a small production, and there's only so many things we can control. My software, my connections are about it, but I can't be responsible for the internet. So that's out of my hands. But anyway, we're going to talk about a lot of different experiences people have had tonight. Wherever you're at on it, as I was saying before, I think you're probably a believer if you're listening. I know that we get a lot of wonderful responses from shows that we do about the Bigfoot phenomena. That and the Dogman have always been tremendously popular, which is wonderful. And I love talking about this because it's an incredibly profound topic. And if you think of the ramifications of it, it's the idea that, we're not alone on the top of this ladder of development. There are other really intelligent things out there. Now, again, intelligence is another bone of contention for people. There's some people that believe that they are as intelligent as us. There's those that believe they're much more intelligent than us. There are those that believe that they are just a step above a gorilla, and I don't know. I don't know how smart they are. I just know that they're there, and people are encountering them. People are seeing them, and with the mountain of experiences and evidences that are out there, both evidentiary and what's the other word I'm looking for? But evidence. With all of the experiences people have had, anecdotal, that's the word I was looking for. Anecdotal evidences, all these people can't be lying. In fact, I think a pretty good percentage of them are telling the truth. Now, do I believe everything that comes down the pipe about these things? No, I don't. But this show isn't about my opinions because, I know that everybody has their opinions and their rights to their opinion. So this show will never be about me preaching about what is or isn't factual, what is or isn't possible. I've learned over the years of doing this show that we just don't know what's possible. In fact, we don't know nearly as, excuse me, hiccup. We don't know nearly as much as we think we do. And, I think that's good because, if we still have a lot to learn, that means we have the more potential to grow. So anyway, let's get into some of these stories and we'll see what you guys think here about some of the information I have pulled up. The first one right off the top of the show is a real short one. And this is a pretty quick encounter, but I find it really poignant because the person experiencing this or made this claim apparently alleges himself to be an ex-Navy SEAL. And I find this interesting, and we'll talk a little bit about it on the other side here, but it's literally just a paragraph. But the person says, hello, I'm getting this from bigfootfinder.com. It's a website out there, and it does a nice job letting people report their sightings as well. So it's not unlike the BFRO in that regard that people can make reports. But I've enjoyed this site. I've looked through it quite a bit over the years of doing the show. But it's ex-SEAL has terrifying Bigfoot encounter at night. He says, hello, my name is John Freureich. I'm probably butchering that name. Sorry about that. I have seen a Bigfoot up close and personal. I was camping and hunting in Colorado. I was sitting by my fire outside my motorhome, and I looked up and saw eyes that shone in the light from my flashlight. It was about 8 feet high. Well, I'll call him he scared the hell out of me. I was 5 feet away from him. He looked at me and me at him. And then he just walked away. I had a 45 on my side, but couldn't raise it. It was the eyes that shone in the light. I'm an ex-SEAL, and this scared the living hell out of me. Those weren't the exact words he's using, but those are the words I'm going to use. And now I find that interesting because, of course, one of the big arguments that skeptics like to say is, well, everybody's got a camera. Why aren't there people taking pictures? And I think that the gravity of that situation is so profound. That's not just a light little, oh, look, I see a bunny hopping across the meadow. Let me grab my phone and get a picture. So you have to understand how amazingly intimidating that would be to be so close to something that could smash you into fudge. You know, I mean, really, literally, by the strength and ability of these things, they could kill us without even a second thought, without even batting an eye. I mean, they literally could swat us once and snap our neck. So you're standing next to something, or you're sitting and something is standing over you, and it's about 8 feet tall. You know, the eyes were at 8 feet. So maybe the head is at about 8.5. I don't know, the top of it, but you have to get a scale in mind for that. Now, as you're sitting in whatever room you're sitting, if you look at the floor and look at the ceiling in most homes, that distance is 8 feet. Now imagine that distance is filled up with something about the size of the Incredible Hulk sitting there looking at you. And you don't know what it is. You don't know what it wants. You don't know what it's doing there, but it's looking at you and you're looking at it. Now, I don't know who the hell in the world at that point could go, hey, wait, selfie time. I mean, really, who's going to go selfie time? You know, I mean, you just, all you're thinking at that point is, am I about to die? If you're a sane, normal person, that's exactly what's going to be going through your head at that moment. This isn't a, wow, that's really cool. It's, you know, like at a zoo where you look at a bear and it's all sweet and cute. But if you see a bear that same distance from you in the wild, you're going to have to scrape your underwear. Well, this is something that's larger than most bears and unknown. So we don't know what it would want. So I don't think it surprises me much that people don't grab pictures. Now, this person claims to be an ex-Navy SEAL. This person is highly trained, if this is indeed what this person is. I don't know. I don't know him. I don't know. I don't have any way to validate or invalidate what he's saying, but I will assume for the sake of his story that he's telling the truth. The next Navy SEALs are trained about as highly as it's possible to train somebody for both battle awareness, situational awareness, response, and being able to think in adrenalized states. Now, this person was sitting there, an ex-Navy SEAL, and had an 8-foot pair of eyeballs looking at him and couldn't even imagine pulling his sidearm. He could not do it. And you can't blame him, because if whatever you've got can't finish that job in one shot, if you can't be sure, then you're going to have to deal with whatever's on the other side of that one shot. And I'm betting if you shoot it, it's probably not going to be good. And the other consideration, of course, and I don't know that this person was thinking in this regards or not, or maybe doesn't even know, but the idea is that if you see one, you can guarantee there are about at least one more somewhere that you are not seeing. And so there could be more than one. So even if you were to possibly kill one, you can't account for where the other ones are or what they're going to do in response to that. So I think it would be a fool's errand to whip out a gun and just start plugging away at something just because it's there staring at you. With the gravity of that situation, with the unknowns that are in that situation, I don't understand how these skeptics come from such a place of ridiculousness about this. I mean, my God, that is such an incredibly profound situation to be in. And then for somebody sitting on their couch or on their at their desk looking at a article would have the audacity to go, oh, you could have got a picture, could have shot that thing. It's unbelievable. So, and if this guy is a Navy SEAL, then the fact that he was also in that position of being so frightened that he couldn't do it, well, that should tell you the gravity of that situation. It's a small, short little story, but it actually speaks volumes about what it's like to be in that situation. And allegedly from a person who is about as highly trained as you can be to not succumb to fear. I think that that's incredibly profound. So I'm just throwing it out there for you guys, take it or leave it. But I think that that's a great example of what it would be like. What do I got next? I got to find something short here. I want to go over a little bit later. We're going to go over the story of the Flatwood Monster. That's not really Bigfoot related. It's something else. But we'll probably do that towards the end of the show. But the Flatwoods Monster was absolutely creepy. Could it have been a Bigfoot? Maybe. It might have been. But we'll go over a little bit of that and show you guys some renditions, artist renditions of what this thing allegedly looked like. It's something else. Could it have been a Bigfoot? Maybe. But it could also be something else. So that's kind of the and more part of the show. So that was the first one on there. Maybe I should just pull up another one of this site and just, let's see. Okay. This next one is also from that same, the same Bigfoot finder. It says hunter encounters smelly Bigfoot in Franklin County. And then the smell is another thing that comes up an awful lot. And that has to do with, some kind of really horrible musky odor. And this one's really, really short as well. It's Franklin County and others, and I don't know where Franklin County is, but whatever it is, it says, I was up north hunting, and I fell asleep to a big thing, brownish, blackish, in a valley, and I could smell the nasty smell. It was indescribable, and I could hear it running and breaking through the brush. It looked almost like the photo. I don't know what photo he's talking about 8 to 9 feet tall and must have weighed about 700 pounds. Now, the smell is another thing that's really interesting. And I believe that it's some kind of a stress-induced thing, much like a skunk. I don't know where those glands are or what they are, but apparently it is about the most rancidly horrible, make you want to vomit smell in the world. And, I know that there are several non-lethal programs trying to develop things like that smell so horrible that it renders whomever it's targeted at unable to create a resistance. This is like nature's version of that, much like the skunk, of course. A skunk will turn its tail on you and make you stink for a week, or your poor dog. I had a close encounter with a skunk one time. It turned out okay. I never even got sprayed, but it was at my old house, and I was standing out on the shore. It was the flood was kind of receding at that time, one of the floods that I lived there in, and I was just taking my laser pointer, just pointing in the water to see if any fish would try to come at it. I was just curious, so I was shining my laser pointer on the water, and I kept hearing this rustling, and it kept coming closer and closer, and I'm standing out there in the dark. And I'm like, well, what's that noise? And I didn't really think much of it until it was really close. Well, then I grabbed my flashlight and turned it on and panned down. And about 2 feet away from me is this skunk looking up at me. And I'm like, oh, my God. And I was absolutely terrified because I've smelled skunk. I've never been sprayed by a skunk, but I've smelled it. And it's a pretty profound odor. It's not, you don't want to smell that smell. And it was right there, just 2 feet away from me. I'm like, oh, my God. And I'm just like, oh, good skunk. As I'm backing away. And he didn't do anything. He just looked at me like, what the hell are you doing here? And I backed away and then went inside and was done for the night. But it was really too close for comforts. But it turned out fine. But it was definitely one of those things. But the skunks, of course, I mean, they've survived due to that weapon. And the Bigfoot smell is supposed to be so much more repugnant than a skunk, because it's not just a skunk smell. A skunk smell is of course very acute, but it's also supposed to smell like rotting meat, garbage, feces, and so much more combined in there. And people that smell it say they get this gag reflex automatically, like they want to throw up. So it seems to be a pretty incredible defense. It comes up a lot. People experience that a lot, but I don't know exactly what it is, but it's pretty terrible. So that seems to be another thing that comes up with them. Another face of the Bigfoot is the smell. Now, it's not all the time. In fact, many people encounter them and say they never smelled anything, just a little bit of a musky odor, but just more like if a raccoon ever comes close, you'll know what a musky odor is. It's not like a stink necessarily. It's just a wild smell. So the fact that some people have these close encounters and then are hit with that smell, it definitely leads me to believe that it's a defense mechanism. When they get stressed, I think it does release that oil or that musk, and you can't ignore it. It's horrible. So I don't know. But anyway, we're going to be going to break here in just about a half a minute. But I want to remind everybody after our show tonight, stick around. Paisley Wild and the Spaces Between is coming up next, followed by Duke and the World Bigfoot Radio. And he'll be unveiling another episode of his Kevin Lang saga, which is absolutely amazing. And I'm just so thrilled he's doing that because it's introducing a whole nother audience to the Kevin Langs. But we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away.
Real people, real radio.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Half hour number 2 is upon us, and in the YouTube chat, listener Diana says, "Yes, my lovely neighbors put a skunk in my garage, and it came with a sleeping bag." Oh my God! Wow, that's not the kind of thing you like to find in your garage. That's horrible. But welcome everybody back to the show. We are at it again. My shirt says, "I have issues." It's a Deadpool shirt. So it says, "I have issues," and that's true. I do. But I can't say I got anything to complain about. So let's continue on our journey. We're talking about the many faces of Bigfoot here tonight. And if you're a Bigfoot enthusiast, then hopefully I'll do well in keeping the stories going and keeping the night moving along. But I think it's a pretty great topic, one that I really love discussing because the continuation of it into through generations. I mean, this has become a generational thing for sure, but Bigfoot has been a part of the landscape here in North America forever. Oh God, what is that doing? I don't know what's going on. Something's like disconnecting, reconnecting. So I apologize for that if you guys are getting disconnect, reconnects. But hopefully I'm still broadcasting. It looks like everything's still connected. Still got all the green lights, so I should be. So anyway, I don't know. Just be patient with me. This is stuff beyond my control, obviously. But, or at least I believe it's beyond my control. I don't think I have anything going on that should be interrupting us. But the next thing I wanted to cover with you guys is from the beaconjournal.com. And not sure really what the Beacon Journal is. I just found this when I was searching around for material to talk about tonight on the show. It says, 2 Ohio men say they encountered Bigfoot-like creature at Salt Fork State Park. And that doesn't surprise me. I think any state park, you have I don't know. That's weird. Huh. I'm getting an error from my YouTube saying that there's not enough information coming from my computer, but that just kind of came out of nowhere. I hope I got to see if I'm still broadcasting here. We still streaming? Huh. Very strange. Hopefully it's not going to interfere with the show, at least part of the show. I know that we're still on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, but I just want to make sure. Okay, yeah, it says we're still fine. Okay, guys, thank you. I just got an error on my screen here, so I wanted to make sure, but now it says excellent connection, so I guess we're good. Damn internets. So Salt Fork State Park, I think any state park, you have a good possibility of bumping into these things. Of course, state parks are the domain of David Politis and his missing 411 stuff, but obviously lots of strange things happen in state parks around the nation, up in Canada, all over the world, as a matter of fact. But there's something weird going on there. No, I don't want to ever imply that those are all because of Bigfoot. I really don't believe they are. But I think there's other things out there that are not quite as nice as a Bigfoot. And so, that's a whole nother can of worms. But as we've been doing the show, we've talked about, I've been introduced to dozens of new things that I didn't have any clue was out there. I thought I was all dialed in knowing about Bigfoot and Dogman, but after doing the show and after talking with people for so long, I've learned that there's a whole catalogs of things out there that we have no concept of or very little. So that's spooky to me. I've never been a big camper, but I gotta say, I'm less of a camper now than I ever was. Oh my God. Not that, I think for the most part, most of these things will always leave people alone, because I think if they have any kind of intelligence at all, they know that if you mess with a person, suddenly you've got hundreds of people combing through the woods and interrupting, whatever it is they do out there. So could be hunting, could be just living. I don't know. But so I think for the most part, they leave us alone. But every once in a while, something just goes sideways, and then you end up in these situations where people just disappear. And missing 411, if you're not familiar with the topic, check it out. It's something that I think everybody should be looking into at least a little bit, or at least be aware of, because there's something going on where thousands of people have gone missing with no trace. Or if they're found, the circumstances behind them, they're finding the remains don't make sense. So definitely check it out. But this is Salt Fork Lake Park. Was that right? Did I say that right? Salt Fork Lake State Park. Sorry, Salt Fork State Park. All right, it says it was just a leisurely walk in the woods, one they've done many times, but this time was different. This time they spotted something that they say they will never forget. It was January 12th when two Ohio men found themselves staring at what they say resembled Bigfoot or Sasquatch in the Salt Fork State Park. Should we even be here? Said Eric, one of the two men. Eric did not want his last name revealed. The figure had characteristics of Bigfoot, hairy, upright, walking, ape-like creature that dwells in the wilderness and leaves footprints. Leaves footprints, of course. Yeah, they do. From time to time, depictions often portray them as a missing link between humans and human ancestors or other great apes. Scientists have discounted the existence of Bigfoot, considering it to be a combination of folklore, misidentification, and hoax. That was me rolling my eyes just then if you missed it. Isn't that convenient? Folklorists often trace the figure of Bigfoot to a combination of factors and sources, including folklore surrounding the European wild man figure, folk belief among Native Americans and loggers, and a cultural increase in environmental concerns. Yeah, that's what created the whole Bigfoot phenomena. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, Ohio grassman, whatever you choose to call it, it really is all the same creature. Very big, hairy, and tall, averaging 6 to 8 feet, with footprints averaging 13 to 17 inches long. Now, there's been many bigger than that. It has been rumored to live in Ohio since around the mid-1700s, and it's also been rumored to live in Ohio's largest state park, Salt Fork. Over 36 sightings have been reported to Don Keating of Newcomerstown since middle of the 1980s, with a huge amount of alleged evidence coming from Salt Fork's borders. Keating decided to host an annual Bigfoot conference at Salt Fork starting in 2005, and according to the Cambridge Guernsey County Visitors and Convention Bureau website. At Salt Fork State Park, there are 3 locations where a Bigfoot is said to have been spotted. Morgan's Knob, where much of an episode of Animal Planet's television show Finding Bigfoot was filmed, Parker Road, also known as Buckeye Trail, and Bigfoot Ridge, the park's primitive camping ground where Kathy Lee Gifford and Hoda something, Cotby, I don't know how the hell you say that, filmed an episode of The Today Show. In 2012, the Salt Fork State Park was named as one of USA Today's top 10 squatchiest places. Seeing the creature was scary, said Nathan Gray of Winterset, a crossroads located just east of Salt Fork State Park. When I couldn't see it anymore, that was terrifying. A video that recreates the scene was includes the alleged original footage of the Bigfoot sighting and has been posted to YouTube. and I will put that in there in our chats, both chats, so that you guys can see it if you so choose. I hope you won't leave me for it, but it might be worth a look. I have not watched this, so I don't know if it's a decent video or not, but I'm posting it in both chat rooms, TFR, and on YouTube, so you can check it out if you choose to. Great. Now, where am I? There. No, here. But anyway, it's not a huge sighting. It's not a huge report, but the point is they had the sighting. I find it interesting. There is such a desire for people to dismiss this phenomena that it's just a result of people's environmental concerns, and the folklore aspect of it, I understand, but folklore is just old stories. Now, that doesn't invalidate them. That doesn't mean they didn't happen. And additionally, the discarding of the Native American stories and legends, I think that's ridiculous, because the Native Americans had been here for thousands of years. They're very well aware of what's in these lands, and what people should be aware of and concerned about. Now, there are folklore stories in Native American tradition, but there's also some pretty stern warnings. There are many tribes across the country, at least my familiarity with them, they all have places where people shouldn't go. And it's not because they think it's just spirits or whatever. It's because they talk about this other tribe of people that live there that are large and hairy and don't like people coming in their territory. And so the Native Americans grew to respect those boundaries and observe those boundaries. Now, that's not because of folklore. That's not because of superstition. That's because they knew that there was problems if you did. There are all kinds of stories of these other kind of beings raiding Native American villages, and there's stories of Native American hunters having brought down one, and then a retribution from a tribe of the Sasquatch moving in and decimating their tribe. So they learned that it was best to respect this. And there are also stories of the Native Americans trading with them and trading goods for goods, that kind of stuff. And I think that's not just folklore. That's a history. That's a living history. And it's cherished. Well, I don't know. I believe it's still regarded as core principles of the tribes, but those histories are not just anecdotal, silly things. I don't mean anecdotal. I just mean fabrications. They're not just fabrications. They are a history that is passed down. And so I don't know. And that also is why, if you ever hear a place called like Devil's Peak or Devil's Lake or whatever, a lot of time the American translations of those things, or the English translations, was to call it Devil's something. But those a lot of times are areas that people were warned away from. Don't go in there. That's where those other people are, So if you find places like that, you should avoid them, in my opinion, unless you're looking for this stuff, and maybe that's where you want to go. But I would just urge caution if you do. So the next thing I want to share with you guys is from the BFRO, and this is it's a Class B report, so I think that's a sighting, but not too close. It says, man recalls his terrifying encounter near the Iconfino State Park while camping with his family. And so this is the actual report from the man, and we'll just go over this briefly and discuss it. But so this is coming from Florida. Okay. Nearest town is Perry, Florida, FLA, Florida. Okay. It says, during November-December hunting season in 1981, my stepfather took us hunting many times in the Snipes Island grade Iconfina, I don't know how the hell to pronounce that, river area, and his family had owned many acres of land in that area for years. We spent quite a lot of time in the area camping, but sleeping in makeshift lean-tos, and numerous times while being left alone, I can remember the eerie sensation like we were being watched, and the hair standing up on the back of my neck. One evening, it all came to a climax. After a day of hunting, discussing how astounded we were as to how quiet it had become and how still the game was, there was no sound of crickets or anything, not even a bird making noise. There was one noise we did hear occasionally, which sounded like a hoot owl on steroids. We'll talk about that in a minute, too. After listening to some vocalizations on here, I am sure they are the same. We did discuss a very distinct odor which smelled like a skunk or worse. My stepfather said it was just a wild hog, or so he thought, and we made nothing out of it. Hours later, I remember being awakened by my stepfather sitting up and screaming at something to get away. He quickly fired several shots of a rifle up into the air. The same stench at this time was terrible and gut-wrenching. We could hear a loud crashing noise as whatever it was ran off into the woods. As we sit up and was talking, he described a tall, looming figure which walked up and was looming over the lean-to and was looming over it. He says looming a lot. He guessed it was at least 7 feet tall. A loud hoot owl noise was several times during that night. All over animals had been quiet that day, and not even any insects were making a noise. And he says he also noticed for several weeks prior, and even afterwards, my stepfather and his friend had been hunting quite extensively, and he often commented on the eerie silence and how nothing, even bugs, seldom if ever made a noise. The days we were camping out, we all experienced hair standing up on our necks, and we felt like we were being watched. Also, about a week earlier, my stepfather and a friend had shot a young buck. The buck was in a dead run, like it was running from something. Again, he marveled at how quiet the forest was. He marked the area the deer had fallen and went after his friend to help him retrieve it. Nowhere, when they returned, could they find a deer. A few months later, they were in the area and found the deer in an entirely different location, and he recognized the skull as the deer that had a unique set of horns. He knew because he watched the deer fall and knew where it should have been. Yeah, wow, that one talks about a whole lot of different things that comes up a lot, and the stillness, that eerie stillness. Now, I've experienced when the forest goes absolutely quiet. I don't know what it was. I'm not trying to imply that it was a Bigfoot. I don't know. It was up in this area, and it's a story I've shared many times of being called up to an old friend's house where his wife and small child were alone as he was out of state. And I went over there and got out of the car. Their problem was there was a German Shepherd they had that was barking constantly, and this dog would alert, but he would just settle down. He would bark a few times and stop. But this night he was going crazy. He would not stop barking, was running all around the house, barking. He would not relent. And so she called and asked if I would come up and check it out. So I did. And I got up there and I grabbed a big stick, and I'm just standing there like, well, I wasn't armed or anything. I just went up to, see what was going on with the dog and see, if everything was okay. And I got out of the car. And it was so quiet. It was a summer night. And up in the mountains here, there's always sound. There's always sounds of crickets and owls. And it's never silent like this. But it was so silent. And that's what really marveled me, was the fact that even the bugs weren't making any noise. It was like everything was just holding its breath. And I think Carrie from Bigfoot Odyssey said that. And I love that. I love that figure of speech. Like everything was holding its breath, because that was a perfect illustration of what it was. And it was unnerving as hell. And I'm walking around the perimeter of the house, standing there, listening. Not a sound, not anything moving, nothing, not a smell in the air that I could tell. But it was really incredibly unnerving. And I stood there and waited and waited. And the dog, of course, had quit barking because I was there with him. And then suddenly, just slowly, the crickets started chirping again. And that was when I felt like I could breathe. And then the world came back alive. Like whatever it was, that was there. And I don't pretend to know. And I don't mean to apply, again, I'm not implying a Bigfoot was in the area. I have no idea what it was. But whatever it was enough to make even the crickets stop making noise. And that boggles my mind because it's not like crickets are a higher order of something. You know, they're these, and no offense intended to any crickets out there listening, but they're just dumb little bugs. They just do their eating and their thing, and they they just exist. But whatever was going on even affected them. And I was so disarmed by that because there was something there that had enough of a presence that the whole area went silent. And then it came back to life, and everything was fine. The dog didn't bark anymore. I eventually went back home, and it was peaceful. But something was there. Something was there that made the entire forest quiet. And that is a creepy, creepy feeling. If you haven't experienced it before, trust me when I'm telling you, it feels like something is just about ready to pounce right on you. And you can't tell. You can't tell. I didn't really get a super creepy I'm being watched feeling, but I got a super creepy like something's really wrong feeling. I know people talk about that. We felt like we were being watched. That was brought up in the story. And I think that's probably some kind of ability we all have. I think that at one time people were probably much more tuned into the world. I think, our ancestors were. But the one thing that we still retain to this day, even with our society and our conveniences and our artificial world that we live in, the one thing we still retain is knowing when we're being watched. It's some little sixth sense that's in our makeup. And we know when somebody's there watching. And maybe not just somebody watching, but somebody watching that doesn't have good intentions. Because people are being watched all the time, but I think it's more of a passing thing. But if ever you're being watched and somebody might have a bad intention, it's like that just triggers something. And we just become aware of that really creepy feeling like something's being watched. And maybe that's some kind of psychic carryover from when we were on the menu. We were part of the food chain and not the top part. When our great ancestors were still carving some kind of existence out of this world. And so that still is with us to this day. And I think that's incredibly profound, and it's definitely a survival mechanism. But I think that we're not accustomed to it. And so when we feel that, we dismiss it. Oh, just being silly. I'm just on edge. And we dismiss it. And I wonder if more people paid attention to that sense when it comes up, could that have saved some people's lives? Could that have saved somebody from being taken advantage of or hurt profoundly or killed? Did they have those feelings too? And I don't know. I just suspect maybe all people do, because it comes up. You hear about it here. Now, this ended fine, but something was there. Something was there looming over that lean-to, and it was about 7 feet tall, which is enormous. So, take it or leave it, but I think that those things are profound examples of what our abilities really are. I think that is, at least. And of course, they talk about the smell, and we already covered that. But that's a huge thing. That smell keeps coming up all the time. I got to find out where I am here. I keep losing my spot. There is a follow-up from the BFRO investigator, but I'm not going to read that. But if you ever get a chance, I know the BFRO takes a lot of heat from a lot of people. And here's the thing. They're just another group. Maybe they're commercial. Maybe they're looking for a financial means. But I know there's a lot of great people working for the BFRO. There's a lot of really cool people that are dedicating their time and energy to this. And it is a great repository for a lot of information, a lot of claims that have been made. you can certainly go to the BFRO website, bfro.net, and Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. That's what the BFRO stands for. But you can go there and you can look through these claims people have experienced and read through them. And, I think it's, at the very least, they've done a good job with that. I know they're not the only site where people can do that, and a lot of people are boycotting the BFRO because of the politics or whatever, and that's their choice. But I think anybody that's interested in really looking into the phenomenon, wants to learn more, you got to take advantage of every resource out there. I don't really have the time to talk about it before the break, but I was going to talk about some of the people that throw shade at armchair researchers. And I think that armchair researchers are incredibly valuable. And we'll talk about that a little more as well. But we're about at the hour break, which is crazy. That went stupid fast. But I like that report. I like that story. I'm glad everything worked out right. All right. In that situation, I think it's very scary when they come that close, because you got to wonder what it was doing. If that father hadn't confronted it, what could have happened? And I don't know. It's not like this. People go missing all the time, but they do go missing. And so I'm glad that worked out okay and everybody made it okay. But definitely something to be concerned about. But we're going to go to our hour break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes. So stay tuned for more of the Paranormal Portal.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me, and their lies keep falling apart.
Caroline is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeist are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2 is now upon us. That's how quickly the night goes here on the portal. But thank you all for all of you that are here with us. There's a bunch of you in the YouTube chat. It's wonderful to see you guys, and it's great to see the new faces. That's the really cool part, is to look up at the chat and see new names and things that I hadn't seen before, people that I haven't met before. So welcome, everybody, and a special thank you to Mark Bailey for your super chat donation. I really appreciate it. He says, please talk about Newfoundland. And I was just looking quick at the BFRO database. They didn't have any reports from Newfoundland, but there's a few from Quebec, which is right in that neighborhood, just a little south. So let's talk about one of those. So this one is coming from Quebec, Canada, and this is from 2004. And the person says, several of my neighbors and I heard the screams late at night for a year in 2004 and 2005. There were 6 of us at separate times, but we all heard the same very spooky long howl growls, and that was as loud as a dinosaur. I first heard it the night of the moon eclipse in late November. I was watching the eclipse outside the cottage, and I heard 2 screams, one within 30 yards. All these screams were within 2 to 3 kilometer radius at our remote cottages in Quebec. And we were up in the Rivière Noire, just north of Fort Colon. I don't know how to say that. I don't have a good French accent to work with here. So I might add, all the people who heard this have either hunted, fished, or lived up there or in the region for over 25 years and had never heard anything like this. We've also seen footprints in the winter and have many pictures of these unbelievable prints. We don't make a big deal because it's too weird, and it's best to just leave things like that alone. I just thought I'd let you notice. And he said, also notice the creepiest thing I've ever heard. I've heard most northern animals except for cougars, wolverines, and badgers. Yeah, a long growl howl thing is pretty scary. But we've got a call here on the board, so let's get to our caller. And this is area code 832. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hello. How you doing?
Nice to hear your voice, Brent.
Good to be heard, Ethan. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, I don't have any, let's say, any experiences, but I just want to say hello, and to everyone on chat to let them know that thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's good to hear you. Everything good in your world?
A-okay, just this and that, and of course, who knows?
Well, let me just tell you, since I got you here on the horn in person, you've been a big part of the show for a long time, and I just want to thank you for that, and thank you for all the love and support you've given this show. It really means the world, and for being so amazingly nice to everybody in the chat. You've been a great addition to our community, brother, and I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Brent. I just want to make your chat more popular.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And you just being here makes it more popular. But thank you, brother. And I'm glad to hear from you. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Good night. Well, that's cool. Sometimes it's just nice to say hi. Doesn't all have to be just talking shop. I mean, it's nice to hear from people and to hear from those of you out there listening. If anybody else wants to call in, the number is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500 is the number for fun here on the portal. So feel free to call it if you got something to share, something paranormal going on in your world, or even just saying hi is nice. But that's the closest I could find to Newfoundland so far, Mark. But thank you for the super chat. That really is amazing and wonderful, and I really appreciate it. So that was that. The hell is this? Oh no! I didn't know that was a YouTube link. What? Okay, so this is coming from thedailystar.co.uk. That's their website. And I don't pretend to know much about the Daily Star, but I think it's maybe a little fluffy. I don't know. I'm not casting aspersions. I don't frequent it. I just know that they do tend to have some paranormal stuff that we've covered on the show, but I'm not advocating the site nor detracting from it. But they have Monster Hunter reveals terrifying British Bigfoot encounters. So I thought, God, that'll be great for tonight's show. And so let me read it for you guys. I think there's actually a picture here that I want to put out there. I don't know. And looking at the picture, we'll talk about the picture in just a minute here. But let's see what the narrative is. It says, chilling accounts of the UK's own Bigfoot are fairly common, and many claim to have spotted a glimpse of an ape-like creature roaming the countryside. It comes just months after a photographer told Daily Star Online that he may have captured the first ever footage of a Bigfoot roaming the British countryside. One such bizarre sighting has been reported by monster hunter Jonathan Downes, who said he had a very peculiar encounter which he still can't explain. While investigating a string of sightings at Bowlam Lake near Newcastle in Northumberland, he claims to have seen a man-like person leaping through a bog. Describing the encounter on the Daily Star Online, when it came to dusk on the last day, we were leaning on the bonnet of my car enjoying a cigarette. If you're not from the UK, the bonnet is the hood. I learned that from watching Top Gear. And he says he went on, then suddenly I and 3 other people I was with saw something like a very tall, spindly man moving incredibly fast over about 12 yards. We saw this thing move from right to left and then left to right before it disappeared. It was something I was not expecting because I went there thinking it would be a hoax. John, who investigates sightings of monsters as a cryptozoologist, added that there's no way what he saw in 2003 could be a person because of the way it moved through the bog. He said his name was what? Jonathan. I'm just responding to AJ in the chat. He said Jonathan who? Jonathan Downes, Downes is the name. AJ. He said John, who investigates sightings of monsters and as a cryptozoologist, added that there's no way what he saw in 2003 could be a person because of the way it moved through the bog. And it isn't the first time people have claimed to have an encounter with Britain's own Yeti. I got to pan south here a little bit. It says, earlier this month, massive ape-like footprints with claws caused a stir in Manchester when a dog walker spotted them on the outskirts of the city. John works as a cryptozoologist for the Center for Fortean Zoology and regularly investigates animals which are thought to be extinct and not exist at all. But even he was completely shocked by this sighting. John is convinced that what he saw could not have been anything human. To have a human do what I saw, it'd have to be an even bigger mystery than what I witnessed, he said. He added, I saw something I can't explain, so when other people see something similar, I don't mock it. But John is fairly skeptical and says that it may just be a sighting of something which science has yet to explain. Well, yeah, I think we're all on that page, John. I don't think that's that's what we're all doing this for, is to try to bring some awareness to it. He said the chances of there being a Bigfoot in Britain are almost nil, and yet people keep seeing these things, including me. Well, that doesn't make much sense at all. So the question is, what are we dealing with? John is almost certain that what he saw was something paranormal, but he believes that whatever he saw might also be what others see and when they spot a Sasquatch. More footage of Bigfoot-like creatures have been spotted all over the world, including walking through a waterfall in Indonesia. I'm not familiar with that. Occult experts have made the shocking claim that Yetis were sought by Nazis to provide final proof of a missing link to the Aryan race. Huh. Well, I'm not sure what that added to the conversation, but I guess we got that on. Let me put this on because they do include a picture of these weird footprints, and I'll put them on screen for you guys to see. I don't know. The pictures of the footprints, I think, it's a little weird. I don't know. I'm going to put them up here, though. You guys can tell me what you think, but here's the picture of these weird prints that, I don't know, it is a bizarre track, but it almost reminds me of a bear. But if this wasn't in Britain, I would just say it was a bear, because you have this smaller foot up front. It's got clear pads, and then I don't know what's going on here. But then it looks like a bigger print in back. And there again, with things like bears, their back feet are more feet-like, and their front paws are more, like a very large canine kind of print. But their back ones are more almost like a foot. They have like a heel and everything. But since I don't believe there's bears in Britain, I don't know what could have been this, could have caused this track. That's very strange. I don't know, but it's just on the surface, it looks like the next one is right here again, which that's so close together. I don't understand what I'm looking at. That's very peculiar. Very strange stuff, ladies and gentlemen, but stuff nonetheless. So you can be the judge of what you think this is. I guess they're attributing this to, but it's got claws, so I don't know what they're attributing this to, just some kind of weird. Now, I will say that there are big cats reported in Britain. Some people believe that they might be released pets when it became illegal in the 70s to own these exotic pets. There was a few exotic pet owners that I think just basically released them into the wild, which I don't know why you would do that, but I guess it's cheaper than trying to fly them back to wherever they're from and release them there. But very interesting. Anyway, so that's a weird print. I don't have any answers for that, but that is peculiar. And you saw it here on the portal. We do as much as we can in far as trying to find things for you guys to see, not just to sit here and stare at me reading stuff. But I can't show you videos for the most part, unless I find something that's really compelling. Then I'll wing it. So far, we haven't gotten a copyright claim on the last one, but I think I was well within fair use to be showing those. Okay. This is another one. It's all right. Let's read this one. This one's coming from CharlotteObserver.com. So I imagine this is Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm going to put this on the other page, though, so you guys can see it with me, because there are some images included in this that I think may be worth perusing. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to put it up with me. All right, so it's ghostly image captured along Lake James reignites Bigfoot fever in North Carolina. It says these grainy images were taken from a boat at about 2 a.m. Saturday on Lake James in North Carolina. But what date is this? This is from 2019, so this is October of last year. Okay. Excuse me. It says grainy photos of shadowy figures standing on the banks of the Lake James have reignited talk of one or more Bigfoot living in the mountains northwest of Charlotte. There's the image, of course. Got that handy red circle to help us identify it, which is really nice. It's a shadowy image. I don't know. Could be. Could be. It looks like quite a distance away, as grainy as this was, and with night vision on top of that. So it says the series of images reportedly taken at about 2 a.m. Saturday, posted on Facebook by a Bigfoot 911, a research group devoted to creatures of folklore like the Bigfoot. I don't think we all consider it folklore on this side of the aisle, just for the record. I wish they'd quit using folklore as a descriptor. It's just a unsubstantiated being. It makes people sound stupid to attribute it to folklore. It's like, wow, they're hanging on to folklore. It's not that simple. With all the evidence and all the things people are finding, this is not just folklore. People are seeing something that's not folklore. So Bigfoot 911 is the same Marion-based team that reported seeing a Bigfoot 2 years ago in McDowell County, but it may have come closer this time to getting the proof that has long eluded believers in the Bigfoot. Oh, there's another close-up image of it. So, yeah, it does look like a tree peeker. That's pretty much the standard half behind the tree, half not. I looked, or it says I locked right onto this creature and knew immediately it was a Bigfoot. Bigfoot 911 member John Bruner told McClatchy News Group. He was standing there watching us and swaying back and forth. I guess he felt safe because the four of us were in a boat and he was on shore. The encounter lasted 5 minutes, he said, and ended when the ghostly figure appeared to turn and walk away. Yeah, I mean, that really does. Just as I'm looking at it, that does seem like the right behavior for sure. I didn't feel as if we were in any danger, Bruner says. Bigfoot are curious. They want to watch us, but they also want to get away from us. They don't want to engage us at all. Believers in the existence of Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, do so in defiance of wildlife experts. Yeah, because you know how experts are. They just know everything. Who say there is a lack of undeniable proof. National Geographic notes most of the evidence is circumstantial, including eyewitness encounters, blurry photographs, and mysterious footprints. Yeah, that's such a gross dismissal of all the combined evidence that's there. But I guess that's where they want to be. That's fine. However, the Indian Army surprised the world in April by tweeting an army expedition in the mountains had found mysterious footprints of mythical beast, the Yeti, believed to be of a high altitude type of Bigfoot. There's a Sasquatch Museum. Okay, well, that's nice. A little ad in there for the Sasquatch Museum in North Georgia. Bruner says the photos taken Saturday were captured with night vision cameras while the men eased into one of the lake's northern coves. Lake James is a 6,812-acre lake, 45 miles northeast of Asheville, and has 150 miles of shoreline, much of it densely wooded. The men were scouting the area after receiving reports that night fishermen had seen something watching them from the shore. He said, and at least one of the sportsmen believed he'd seen a Bigfoot in June, Bruner said. Reaction to the photos on social media has been a mix of support and skepticism, which Bruner says he expected. Some see only a shadow, while others easily see a creature. I think it's just where there was no foliage or trees, kind of like a trail or opening of some sort, posted Christy Dodson on Facebook. I thought the same thing, but in the other pics, it definitely changed positions AJ Crowley responded. So it's not stationary. Plus, once you see the shape, you just kind of know it's not a stump either. I blew it up on my tablet and then studied the pics under an old school magnifying glass. Definitely a creature there, G.I. Johnson wrote. Or G.L. Johnson, sorry. G.I. Johnson, sounds like an action figure. It's the real deal. It's no shadows. That's interesting. Yeah, that's the hard part. Anytime anybody brings forth evidence, there's going to be that pushback. Some of it, I think, is motivated by people just not willing to embrace the idea. Some of it, I think, is more ego-based, that there is a real competition in the Bigfoot world to be the one that finds it. I don't know. Take it or leave it. I think this could very well be a photo of that, and I don't have the comparison images to see, if it really was changing position, if it's leaning out more, leaning back more. But I don't think that that's just an opening there. It's because I would expect these other areas behind this tree to be much darker too and less human shaped. But that does look like a head. That does look like an enormous shoulder and down to an arm. I wish that damn pop-up thing didn't sit there, and down to a leg. This looks like something coming off of the tree, like a knot in the tree. So it does, for all intents and purposes, it does match what people describe when they say that they're tree peeking. They look from behind a tree and just kind of sit there and rock back and forth. That is behavior that's described over and over. Now, I don't know, but it's kind of one of those things. There's no way I can know. I can't go to the same location. I can't do test shots. I can't try their camera out and try to recreate it, knowing that it's an opening or not. There's so many things we can't do, but like anything else on the internet, you just kind of got to base it from a gut feeling. Does it make sense? Well, sure, it makes sense. Other people are seeing something in the area. North Carolina has plenty of Bigfoot sightings. So if it's around a lake, that's like with woods, that's about the perfect habitat. So I don't see any reason not to believe that couldn't be a legitimate photo. It's not so amazing that, that it's undeniable, but at the same time, is it plausible? And yeah, it is. So I think there's lots of valid photos out there, but the problem is that it's hard to substantiate a blurry photo. And pretty much it's never going to be the one piece of proof that's been needed, because it's a blurry photo. It's too thin to use to substantiate something on its own merits. But when you combine this blurry photo with other reports that are coming in from the area, other people witnessing things in the area, and a long history of it, then yeah, it could be. So I think so many people just discard these things out of hand, and that's kind of my pet peeve when it comes to the Bigfoot community or the paranormal community and UFO community, any of the paranormals. That's my pet peeve, is when people just for some reason or other, that's a bunch of crap. That's so fake. And I always challenge that. I'm like, anytime I see it, I'm like, what are you seeing exactly in this image that is telling you that this is a fake? Could you let me know? And because two things. Because if they do actually have a narrative for what it is they're seeing, then I can learn something and I can be a better person to review these things. Because I think it's kind of part of my job doing a show that I can look at things and at least give a rudimentary evaluation. But most 99% of the time, nobody responds to that. They just do their BS remark. They puke it out on the page and then they just ignore it. And it's because I don't think they have a reason. It's because they just choose to be negative. They just choose to be contrary for no valid reason. Now, I will say that I've looked at pictures, and I talk about this on the show every once in a while. There was one picture that was from a trail cam, and it was the weirdest shape, this really weird, obscure, furry-looking thing. And people were like, I think that's a Bigfoot. And other people were like, no, that's not Bigfoot. But nobody could identify it. And it went for like a day, hours and hours. I kept checking back to see if somebody could tell me what I was looking at, because I couldn't figure it out. And then finally, some guy came out there and said, That's a deer. And of course, people attacked him right away. And he came back and went, no. And he drew a picture on there with he took the image and put it on his computer and traced out the deer parts that were showing. And it was basically a deer that was in this weird spinning position. And its leg was kind of tucked up behind it. And it was about to turn and run off. But based on the image, it was impossible for me to tell. But that guy was an avid deer hunter and does trail cams all over the place. And he said, no, that's a deer, and here's why. And as soon as he said it, boom, it clicked in my head. It was a deer. It was definitely a deer. He was absolutely right. So that's why I asked the question, because if somebody really does have a narrative and can explain to me what it is, then I become a better observer. But if they're just going to be contrary pains in the ass, then, I'll call them on it. And, when they don't substantiate their answer, then I guess they lose credibility then. So don't leave comments just to be contrary, is my point. It doesn't help anybody, and you're not helping the field. If you have a reason for saying that, give a narrative and do it politely. There's no reason to be a dick. So just my 2 cents on that, but it is one of my pet peeves. I'm just like, I'm so tired of people just being emotionally challenged on these message boards or these posts. But there's the bell. So, Saved by the Bell. We'll be right back. Just a couple minutes. Last half hour of the Paranormal Portal coming up in just a minute, so don't go away. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Last half hour is upon us, but we have a call right off the bat, and I want to get to this right away. So let me get to the call here. And say that's 409, you're on the air.
Yeah, hey, brother, how's it going?
Good, brother. How you doing? Thanks for calling.
All right. I don't know if you remember me from Texas, but I called a while back about the, I think you pointed them out as duendes.
Yes.
Little people.
Yes, sir.
That got me.
Yep. I do. I remember.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I said, yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Cool deal. So anyway, I was thinking back, and this is something that I remember back 2002. It wasn't on the earth; it was above the earth. And way back in 2002, I was look, I'm down in Southeast Texas, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you may be able to tell by my voice, I don't know. But I work in the oil industry.
Okay.
I live in Orange, Texas.
Uh-huh.
I'm right down here near the Gulf, near Louisiana. And at the time, I had a job over in near Houston. So I was driving. It's probably 40 to 50 miles each way every day.
Wow.
Working
Okay.
12, 15 hours a day.
Hmm.
And a bunch of us from my area going over there, and we drove our own cars or whatever.
Wow.
So, one night, well, let me back up a minute. I'm just going to say this. From Houston, there's two major airports,
Okay.
and there is a military airport. I can always see them going to or from over my house.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell airplanes or helicopters or whatever.
Sure.
The military flies in a certain pattern, okay? Especially with their helicopters. They've got, 4 or 5 different paths they take at night. And at a certain time when they get off the ground, they'll turn lights off, period.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the choppers. Commercial airplanes, they fly over and you can see them 20, 30,000 feet up, whatever.
Sure.
And typically it's a clear sky. You don't get to see too many stars down here because we're way down low in elevation,
Oh, okay. Sure.
But anyway, so we typically know the regular flight paths and everything that, people are coming over.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that particular night, 2002, I was coming home from Houston one night, and at that time we still had flip phones, me and my buddies, everybody. So I'm driving home, and between Houston and Beaumont, it's all rice fields. There's nothing out there. It's dark. There's no street lights.
Mm-hmm.
On I-10. You can ask anybody in Texas. It's the biggest, most boring part of I-10 you can ever drive on. So anyway, it's dark. And I'm driving along, and I look up in the sky, and I see what I used to call Chinese luminaries. You can call them sky lanterns.
Sure. Right.
The little lanterns they send off when people die.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're like little paper lanterns they send up.
Yeah.
But it was like millions of them all around. I pulled off the side of the road to look up. They're all around the sky. But I'm telling you, not 10 or 12 feet up, like 30,000 feet up. And just sitting there. Little white lights everywhere around.
Wow.
So I tried to call my buddies that were heading back.
Uh-huh.
And I got a hold of 2 of them. And I was like, hey, man, y'all pull over. Let's look at this stuff. They did. We could not figure it out for nothing. They weren't moving. And after 10 or 15 minutes, we're like, look, we just got to go because it's so late,
Right.
It was the strangest thing. Nothing moving.
Doesn't that make you wonder, what are they
And I'm
doing?
telling you, the sky was full of them, man. Full of them.
Jeez.
And I'm right here on the Gulf Coast. So most of them were over the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
If you're looking at elevation and position,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
That's wild.
it's the strangest thing.
Yeah.
Strange. I don't know what to make of it. We didn't know what to make of it. Never will. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And there was just a video recently put out that apparently came from Pocatello, Idaho. So it's on the south end of Idaho, which is the state that I live in. And it's not millions of lights, but there's like 6 or 7 of them there. And they're just kind of hanging there. And they kind of, one will go out, and then it'll reappear on the whole other end of it, just like in a heartbeat. And it's just this weird display. And you got to wonder, what the hell are they doing? You know, and I think,
I wish
go ahead.
Go ahead, bro.
Well, it's just I wish I knew what they were up to, or what's going on, or what's the big picture here, because it's really bizarre. Now, if you're seeing millions of those, that's frightening. that's frightening.
Well, here's the deal. If you've ever been down here, it's flat. We don't have any hills or nothing right here.
Sure.
It's all marshland and Gulf of Mexico. So you can see for miles and miles away through the sky and through the, everywhere, down the highway, everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, if you look up sky lanterns and just get a little glimpse of that,
Mm-hmm.
it's those things go up maybe 100 feet or so, and then they're burned out.
Yep.
I'm telling you, these were bright lights at least 30,000 feet up where a commercial airliner would be,
Yeah.
and all around the whole skyline as far as you could see.
Right.
And we were thinking, what could that be? Because, Hobby Airport is right there in Houston, and Bush Intercontinental is right there in Houston.
Yeah.
So did they know something about it? Somebody knows something about it.
Right. Yeah, you wonder. I mean, I imagine, there's plenty of stories, of course, that have been released or filtered through the whole information chains of these things showing up on radar. So it seems like in a lot of cases, they may very well be aware that they're there. But I don't know. It's mind-boggling. It just makes you wonder, how long ago was this, did you say?
It was 2002, probably about about April and May of 2002.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they haven't taken over.
And it's too bad I didn't have a camera, because at that time, like I said, I had a flip phone still,
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you were seeing lights as if you were looking at the stars, but there's no stars. So, I don't know, brother. That's bizarre, though. And that's a lot of lights.
They were
Oof.
They were brighter than stars
Uh-huh.
in our atmosphere, and just they weren't like phasing out. They were just there, glowing all around us.
Wow.
And about 3 of us stopped, and we're like, "What is this? This is the weirdest thing. Never seen it before." I mean, it was weird, man.
Yeah, I think I would be pretty intimidated by that myself if I saw that. That's strange. I mean, it sounds like there were still quite a distance.
I think
off.
we weren't intimidated.
Okay.
We don't get intimidated by much down here. But we were just in awe at it,
Yeah.
Like, wow, what is that? What could it be? You can't explain it. You can see it, you can tell everybody, but what is the explanation for it? You can never find it.
Right. Yeah, that's very strange. Very strange. Wow.
Yep.
That's powerful, brother. I appreciate you calling to tell us about it.
Anyway, I appreciate you taking my call, man.
Anytime, man. Appreciate it. Have a good night, and thanks for being here.
Hey, y'all take care.
Okay, good night. That's really cool. I don't know, man. Millions of lights in the sky like that. That to me is intimidating. I mean, it's just because you don't know. Is that the landing party for the invading army or what? Ugh. I don't know, because I don't know what they're here for. You know, I often think about, what are they here for? What are they doing? Why do they sit there, and why do they grab cows all the time? That's a whole other argument. But I just wonder, what is the agenda? Are they here to help? Are they here to not help? Are they here to assume ownership? I don't know. And if they were, could we do anything about it? Probably not. But I guess it doesn't help to worry. But that's a hell of a sight. Wow, that's very cool. I appreciate that. And I love it when you guys call in. You guys bring something new to the show every time. It's awesome. Okay, now I was gonna no, this wasn't the one I was gonna read. There's one here I wanted to read because I want to make sure to get it in before the end of the show. So this one's coming from a website called bicycletouringpro.com. I thought this is interesting. It's my terrifying encounter with the wild man. So it says, my eyes were open, but all I could see was darkness, pure black. A vague cloud of charcoal swirled in front of my eyes as I struggled to gain focus. I knew where I was, but I was unable to do anything about it. I don't know. I hope this isn't a fiction story, but I didn't think it was, but it might be. If it's fiction, I'm sorry, just in advance. I was laying on my back, incapable of movement, and my heart was racing. Pounding, more like it. I was frozen solid, sweating and scared out of my mind. My eyes were the only thing that I seemed to have control of, and they were failing me now. I had been in this frozen, pitch-black state for what seemed like an eternity, but in reality was only a matter of seconds. I had woken up in an instant before I was even fully awake and knew what was going on. I could sense the danger and smell the rancid breeze before my brain could even realize what was happening. The situation was this. I was alone, hundreds of miles from civilization, camping in a small one-man tent during a month-long bicycle tour across British Columbia, Canada. I was in a tent all alone in the middle of a vast forest, and I was frozen solid. From inside my sleeping bag cocoon, I could sense the movement of a large, sulphurous animal making its way through the brush on my left side of the tent, no more than 30 feet away. I could hear the animal's footsteps as the weight of the creature pressed down on a thick layer of dead leaves and soft earth. I've spent more than a decade camping in remote locations all around the world, so I've heard large animals moving through the forest at night. I've seen deer, moose, elk, bear, raccoons, wolves, bobcats, and even mountain lion. But this was nothing like those other animals. This thing was huge, was clearly walking through the trees on 2 massive feet, and it was getting closer to my tent. Seconds passed, but they seemed like hours. I tried not to breathe, fearing the animal might hear me and come closer to investigate, but in the back of my mind, I knew that whatever was out there was already well aware of my presence. I hoped the creature would get bored and eventually just go away, so I tried to slow my breathing, and I waited. The stillness is what scared me the most. There it is again. The forest was so quiet, unnaturally quiet. There were no singing birds, no critters crawling. The wind wasn't blowing, and the nearby brooks were silent. All I could hear was my rapid heartbeat, and every slow breath. Then, just as I thought I might have been imagining the whole thing, a branch cracked, and there was a quick shuffle in the brush on the left-hand side of my tent. And that's when I realized that this was actually happening. When I was in 6th grade, I'd written a 2-page paper about Bigfoot. I watched a bunch of documentaries on the History Channel and subsequently became fascinated with the creature. Fascinated and frightened. When my father took me hiking through the Sierra Nevada mountain range a year later, I excelled in the wild, but was scared of going off on my own. Not out of fear of wild animals like bear or moose, but because I thought I might run into Bigfoot. Years later, I realized how silly I'd been, and of me to believe that Bigfoot was a real-life creature. After all, no good evidence for the beast seems to exist. Casts of massive footprints have been taken, and shaky video evidence shows little of any true living creatures. So when I grew to the age where I could think for myself, I let Bigfoot go. I traveled the world, spent years roaming around by myself in the forests, deserts, jungles, and even never once did I see any evidence for a massive, hairy monkey man living in the woods. That's, of course, until this very moment when I knew in an instant that something huge was stalking me. So I lay in my tent in the woods of British Columbia. I couldn't yet see the beast, but I knew it was there. Still on my back and covered in darkness, I lay listening. Even the slightest movement of the animal could be heard and felt. The forest is funny like that. You're laying on the ground and you can feel even the slightest footstep of a creature on the other side of the forest. The earth moves and you can feel it. And I was on high alert, so my body was picking up everything. And that's when the creature moved again. There was a loud crack in the brush, and my heart instantly began fluttering. It was like going from 60 to 110 in a millisecond. And all it took was a single step by an animal no more than 20 feet away from my tent. One step is all it took. That's all I needed to shock me back to my reality. I was completely alone, trapped inside of my sleeping bag, laying on the ground inside of a thin layer of tent. I had no way of defending myself. I had a knife in one of my panniers, but in order to get the knife, I'd need to first unzip the sleeping bag, and even if I could do that without attracting the attention of the animal, I still had to find the knife inside my panniers, crawl out of my tent, and prepare to put up a fight. The odds were against me. So instead, I just stayed where I was and listened. The silence is what made this experience so frightening. The animal would take a step, sometimes two, and then it would just sit there and not move. And we'd both be listening, me listening to it, and it listening to me. And when one of us moved, the other would too. I'd take a deep breath or shift my body just an inch or two, and the creature would move forward one slow step at a time. A few minutes passed, but it felt like an eternity. I could tell the animal was getting closer. Its stench was horrific, but its presence was even more frightening. Even though I couldn't actually see the animal, I could feel just how big it was. The earth rumbled in a slow, almost monstrous tone each time the animal moved one of its feet and laid them to rest in the leaves outside of my tent. I could smell the wet air surrounding the beast and practically taste the dirt and disease that hung off the creature's body. Its filth would be apparent from several hundred feet away, but by now it was no more than 10 feet from where I was lying. It was so close to me now that I could hear it breathing. My heart was racing, my face was dripping with sweat, and I was sure this was going to be the moment my life came to an end. My whole life flashed before my eyes, and I thought about what it might be like for my friends and family to never know what happened to me. They'd have a hard time finding me. After all, I was camped out in the middle of a forest far from home. I hadn't really told anyone where I'd be, and I'd hike back from the main road several hundred feet. It would be weeks or months before anyone found my tent and bicycle in the dense trees, let alone my body. The creature moved forward again, and now it was just inches from the outside of my tent. Its massive form cast a faint shadow on the exterior of my tent, and I could see just how big this animal truly was. It was huge. Even though I had already accepted my fate, I decided to give myself one last chance at life. I wasn't just going to lie and die. I was going to fight. So just as I saw the massive hands start reaching towards my tent, I sat up inside my sleeping bag and screamed. April Fools. Oh, you got to be kidding me. That's horrible. I said, none of this ever happened to me. Well, that was a good story. that's mean. That's horrible. That just shows you the amount of prep I take in every show. Oh God, that was a cliffhanger. What a terrible thing to do, that bastard. Oh Lord, I hope you love that. I'd like to say I was in on it, but nope. Hook, line, and sinker right there, baby. I'm like, nah. It was a good story. I know everybody's just like, I was too. I was reading it. I was like, what next? What next? Those jerks. Oh, those jerks. Oh, that was good though, wasn't it? That's a good way to end the show though, isn't it? Oh, it cracks me up. Oh, geez. Well, it was a good story, though. It was well written. I was into it. I thought that was very interesting stuff. Now, is that far from what would be happen? No, there's many claims like that out there of people that have been camping and had these things sneak up, and they seem incredibly interested by us. They seem incredibly curious by our stuff. And I suppose if you lived your life in the woods and in the sticks and in the nature, that these contraptions and things and colors that we bring into their world is probably incredibly curious. They're probably incredibly, captivated by it. Many, many stories of them coming up to houses, looking in the windows and watching people watch TV. I think they probably are incredibly mystified by what we're doing. They don't really understand it probably too well, but I guess it gets back to our initial thing when we were talking about how smart are they? Are they us smart, or are they, just above a gorilla kind of smarts? And we don't know. There's lots of ideas out there. There's some people that'll tell you they know, and maybe they're right. I'm not telling you either way. I just don't know. It seems that they are incredibly intrigued by us, and as Bear said, we are their entertainment. When Bear was on the show a few times, he's told us that. He's talked about their fascination with us, and I think that that's right. In fact, I think if you're going out to look for these things, about the best thing you can do is just stay where you're at. Chances are they already know you're there. They're well aware of your presence in their world, and just think about it. I mean, think about your house where you live. You're acutely aware of everything that's in your house. You know when something, even one thing, is moved. Like you can walk into a room and, if you're an observant person, you can see if somebody moves something. It's, why was that moved? Why isn't that where it was before? And I think that they're very acutely aware of their surroundings, and I think it's because they have to be. They have to survive. I mean, for us, being aware of our home, sure, it's it's familiarity and it's comfort, but it's it's also our safe place. It's our safe place from the world. It's our domain. Well, this is their domain, so I think they know when people have been through. They may be able to recognize the little tree snaps the little branches hanging after they've been snapped. They can tell when somebody's moved through. These beings probably hunt and track things all the time. They know when things have moved through an area. They know what they're looking at. So, but they do get curious about us. So the narrative of this story is, it still sucks that it was April Fool's, but the narrative is one that I've heard a few times, dozens of times actually, in reading Bigfoot reports of people camping and things coming up and going through their coolers at night or poking the tents. Hell, somebody, can't remember where this story came from, but somebody was getting poked in the night by this weird pressure on their back. They woke up to something poking them through their tent. So they smacked it and they hit something, and then they heard the bipedal running away from their tent. So something was there poking them in their tent. And I guess, it stands to reason they would be curious. They would want to understand it and know more. So the fact that they would be drawn to us and want to check it out, that's normal. I don't think that's even predatory nature. But anyway, that's about all the time we got in tonight. I'm glad we left. We ended on such a funny note, but I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can, and stick around because Paisley Wild's coming up next on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live with the spaces between. And following her is the Duke's World Bigfoot Radio, where he continues the Kevin Lang saga. So love you guys. Take care. I'll be back tomorrow with Don. Have a good night.